Well, welcome to Out of This World. By popular demand, we are back. I'm Carl King, and this is a call-in show where we talk about aliens and UFOs, secret societies, and all that fun stuff. And today, we'll be talking about ghosts. Ghosts. My guest is Tiff Wegmann, a self-proclaimed paranormal expert, which I think means that she is herself paranormal, but also an expert on things in general. Tiff, welcome to Out of This World. Are you with us?
I am indeed, Carl. Thank you for having me.
All right, Tiff is with us. So, first, I want to let everyone know that you can post your questions or stories in the chat, and we will do our best to answer or talk about them. And in a little while, we will also open up a phone line, which might already be on your screen. We're not gonna take calls yet. But in a little while, you'll be able to call and you'll get a chance to share your ghost stories live on the stream. So let's get into this. Let me switch over to my other screen. Okay. Now, so Tiff, what got you started on this whole adventure of being a paranormal expert?
Well, the expert part only came within the last few years, but I have been having paranormal experiences for as long as I can remember. One of my earliest memories was being a small child who didn't even know what a ghost was. I had to be maybe 2. I have very vague memories from back then. And my grandparents lived in a house that their family dubbed the Red Brick House, and it was a 2-story house. And I remember being taken there as a little tiny child, and I was terrified of the upstairs.
Mm-hmm.
So this seems like you're a little kid, who knows what you were thinking. But years later, when I got older, I learned from my mom that she was also scared living there as a child. She had some paranormal experiences. So that made me think that, maybe I had a little bit of a sixth sense, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
I still never got super into it. I'm a skeptic believer, even as a paranormal expert. I always leave room for the fact that there are other explanations out there. There's so many unknown things in the world, and just the brain, for instance. We know so little about the brain. I mean, even that, maybe we create our own ghosts, who knows? So I've always been a skeptical type of a person, but throughout my years of growing up, I started having just like little things happen here and there, some of them that I couldn't quite explain away. And that is what opened my mind up to learning more about the paranormal and how it works and what do other people believe and, what kind of proof is out there and what kind of information is out there to debunk these things as well.
So, do you want to talk a little bit about that brick house? Right,
well, I actually
you
don't
said it was a red
have
brick house?
a ton of stories about the brick house because I honestly can't remember how many times I went there. I just remember this one time in particular being scared, but I may be able to get my mom to call in at a certain point later on in the show, and she can tell some stories.
Excellent. Just want to remind everyone that we have a goal today that we are trying to reach also. Our goal today is to reach $25 in tips to buy Carl King a new shirt with a ghost on it.
Yes, he definitely needs a ghost shirt.
So you can see down in the bottom left side of the screen, there's a little area where you can see the current level of the goal. And of course I have a theremin here, by the way.
Is that what goes off when you put your head near it?
Yeah. Okay, so let's get into some of your experiences with these ghosts. Let's hear from you what you saw or smelled or touched.
Well, my first most compelling paranormal experience, it was actually a culmination of many things happening over the course of a period of time. When I was 16 years old, my grandmother was ill, and I was the only one in the family who had the time and was able to live with her full time in order to help take care of her while my family was, doing whatever they needed to be doing at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And being a teenager, of course, I loved staying up late and playing video games. So it's hard to describe the layout of the house, but the living room was, imagine a square, and then 2/4 of the square makes up the living room, then 1/4 makes up the kitchen, and then 1/4 is the dining room. So I'm in the dining room at the farthest end of the dining table from the kitchen. And all I can see is my computer light. The whole house is dark because my grandma's sleeping, and, I'm trying to be quiet and do my thing. And I would constantly see just little things that were easy to play off, a light flickering over there, a shadow out of the corner of my eye. Nothing that would really make me think, oh, there's definitely gotta be a ghost in here. But then one night, I'm on my computer and...
Sorry, I just had to add a little sound effect there.
That's all right. I'm at my computer again, can't see anything. The way the configuration of this room was, since I'm on the one end of the dining table, straight in front of me is the kitchen and the kitchen table. And near the kitchen table, there was a little counter where my grandparents kept all of their just important documents and things they were saving. And I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden I start hearing what sounds like somebody flipping through pages on that counter. So of course, skeptical Tiff is like, it's gotta be a rodent.
A what?
Maybe there's a rodent, a mouse maybe is scurrying in there. Maybe it's a giant roach. We're in Florida, so we have
roaches. Florida roaches. They're big.
Yeah, you know what it's like here. The palmetto bugs are huge and can sound like mice sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But the way that the paper was moving, it wasn't a scurrying, it wasn't a scuffling. It was a very deliberate and slow page turn, like someone reading a book almost.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I was freaked out, and so I did not go over there. I didn't move. I was like, I'm not moving. I'm staying on my computer. I'm playing video games until that sound is gone, and then I'm gonna run to my room.
Yeah.
So I never did find out what that was. But then after my grandma did finally pass, other people started seeing things too, and people even saw my grandmother.
They saw things in that same house?
Yes, and on the farm.
Ah.
So then there comes in a little bit of backstory. My grandmother, who lived in that red brick house, which, I believe was probably haunted.
Did you say that was in Sarasota somewhere, or where was that?
Which, the red brick house or the farm?
Well, both of the houses. I'm just trying to get a picture here.
The red brick house is in Tampa, Florida.
Oh, okay. And
the farm is up in not Tallahassee, Florida, but Monticello, Florida, which is very close to Tallahassee.
Okay.
So from the red brick house, my grandma believed that the woman who owned it before her, who she was very good friends with, was haunting the red brick house. Mm-hmm. And when she moved to the farm, she invited this ghost to come with her to her farm. And she truly believed that the ghost had, in fact, and the ghost's name, if I didn't already mention it, was Mrs. Adams.
Mrs. Adams.
Yes. So Mrs. Adams moved with her. And I just found out a couple of days ago from my mom, because we were discussing ghosts, that typically ghosts, the way they operate, and this is, my paranormal expertise coming in, they tend to be attached to either a property, that could be the inside of the house, or even the entire property, the yard, the gardens, whatever, or an object that maybe had some type of meaning. So, when my mom said, yeah, she thinks Mrs. Adams moved with her, I was like, well, they don't usually just move with you. Did she happen to bring some sort of like knickknack from the house that was Mrs. Adams from before? Well, it turns out that one of the big sinks that we had outside to, help take care of and bathe the animals from the farm, it was a really huge, custom designed by Mrs. Adams porcelain sink.
Okay, it was a haunted sink.
And so I was like, there it is. That's how Mrs. Adams made it to this farm. So there was Mrs. Adams. Then one of the experiences I had when I was younger that I didn't realize what it was until all of these other paranormal things started happening at the farm. I can't remember how old I was. I was very young. I had to be like maybe 12 max. I was babysitting for my little cousin. She was so young that I had to change her diapers and everything. So it was just myself, my little brother, who's 4 years younger than me, and then, this tiny little baby, and the rest of the family had gone out. So while we were sitting in the living room, I heard really heavy footsteps in the kitchen. And at this point, my grandpa had already died. And it really sounded like him. He always wore really big work boots. And the house was actually a trailer that he built up with bricks and added rooms and added a garage. And so it was a very sturdy house. But if you've been in a trailer, you know that since they're raised off the ground, they, when you walk, especially if you're a heavy stepper, it's a bit noisy. But at my 12-year-old or whatever age mind I had at the time, my grandma had cats, and they'd jump on the counter and then jump off. So I was like, it was a cat jumping off the counter. Even though in reality, there's no way a cat could do that, because it would have to jump off the counter over and over, like 5 times in a row to make these footsteps. So I realized, okay, now the farm has my grandpa, my grandma, and Mrs. Adams.
And Mrs. Adams all
which
hanging
brings
out
up
like a little retirement home of haunted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're all friendly. They've never done anything crazy. I mean, they loved the farm. They loved each other. They loved their family. So I think they just, they wanted to stick around. It was a nice place. But this farm property was 85 acres. So, pretty big. And there was a shop on the property. I don't know the distance from the house itself, but a pretty good trek from the house. And my dad was racing go-karts at the time, and he used the shop to store his go-karts and work on them. And he had a friend who he also allowed to use this shop, and he would come over and he would work on his go-karts, but he never stayed after dark. And he told my dad he didn't like to stay after dark because of what was out there. And my dad's mind, because he's not really a paranormal guy, his mind went to, the coyotes and the snakes and whatever. So he went back to the house and brought a shotgun out to this guy, Chris, and was like, here you go. Now you can stay after dark. And this guy said to my dad, no, it's not the animals. It's the spirits. There are 3 of them.
Oh, 3 of them specifically, too.
Yeah, and I was like, okay, well, I know who they all are. Because I've seen them and other people have seen them. So, it was one of those things where I had all these little things that individually, people would be like, yeah, that's kind of a weird story. It's kind of creepy, but it's not that compelling on its own. But once you start adding in all of these other factors, then it's like, okay, so maybe I'm not crazy. Maybe I didn't imagine that. Maybe it wasn't a rodent scurrying through the papers on the counter.
I don't know if I'm more scared of it being a cockroach or a rodent or a ghost, because I think might be equally scared with all three.
Well, back then, at 16, I would have been scared of all three, but now that I'm 34, I wouldn't have been scared of any of them, so I would have totally gotten up and checked.
So you're not scared of ghosts at all anymore?
No, not really.
So how do you feel about ghosts? What is your thought if you start to experience? What do you think?
I am just majorly curious about them because, as I said before, even despite these stories that I have, I have the part of me that is like, oh, I totally believe in ghosts. But then I have the other side that's like, nah. And I also leave room for the fact that there can be other explanations. You know, there are electrical anomalies that happen that make people think there's a ghost. Houses make settling noises that people, if they're not used to them, they mistake them for footsteps or something. And then, of course, and this is a more somber subject, but there are people who have mental illnesses and they might perceive something as paranormal that isn't.
Okay. Now, do you think that in general, in your research, have you found that ghosts are friendly or malevolent?
Well, what I have found is that if it is in fact just a ghosts they're just people. Some of them were jerks in real life. So they might end up being jerk in the afterlife. And they may even have a little bit of an evil side, but for the most part, ghosts, they're not typically the ones that cause a lot of problems, and they're not usually the ones that are scratching people and pulling them out of the bed and causing stuff like that. That's other more demonic type entities. The biggest thing with ghosts is, if you do have an angry ghost, you might want to do something to get rid of the ghost, like a cleansing or whatever. But one of the best ways to deal with ghosts is just to realize that they were real people at one point, and if you can find a way to accept them and coexist with them, they usually will respond to that.
Now, what would you actually...
So, as a whole, I would say they're not evil or scary unless you get unlucky and you have that one guy who is really mean in real life, and then he might harass you a bit in your home.
Okay. How would you mentioned a cleansing. How would one go about doing a cleansing to maybe...
There are a lot of
ghost?
different methods, and it depends on your belief, whether that be just there are spiritual cleansers, but there's also priests, Catholic priests, and psychics. So they all kind of have slightly different methods, but they kind of all fall under the same category, where you're basically going through the house, whether it be with sage or some other sort of herb or whatever to burn, or in the case of priests, maybe even holy water, and they go through and pray, or use if they're not someone who prays, they find their own words. And a huge part of it is also being in control, not being cocky, but being genuinely confident, and showing that this is your house, or you're the one cleansing this house, and they need to get out, or they need to chill out. If they're causing problems, you can stay, but you gotta chill out. So it's usually something along those lines. But there are times where people, if they're able to figure out how to coexist with these ghosts, you don't even end up needing a cleansing.
And what type of evidence might a ghost leave behind? Is there any physical evidence like ectoplasm or any electromagnetic traces, anything like that are commonly found?
No ectoplasm. That's a Ghostbusters thing.
Darn it.
Ectoplasm usually is used to describe rather, pictures that have like streaky, weird looking, like webby things that you're like, what was this? That wasn't there when I took this picture. Or even maybe they might show themselves as a form of ectoplasm if they happen to manifest in front of you, but they don't leave ectoplasm behind. There's not any goo or anything like that.
And no electromagnetic traces.
They do leave spikes with EMFs. And again, skeptical believer, sure, there could be other reasons that
we just got $1.
Spikes.
Hey everybody, we got $1.
Oh my gosh, you're so close to your shirt.
All right, I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
Where was I?
We were talking about electromagnetic traces.
Oh, sorry, I got really excited about that $1.
Yeah,
so.
Everybody gets excited about $1.
But yes, it's common for them to leave EMFs because you can even, you can be in a building that has completely no power, and typically what you would want to do when you're going to investigate an area for paranormal activity, you would want to sweep the whole area that you're investigating, do an EMF sweep in order to get a base reading of the EMF, so then you're able to catch those spikes. Because everywhere, unless you're completely away from anything that has electricity or has a lot of conductivity, you'll get a pretty low reading. So yeah, you want to do the sweep and then you can see the spikes. But the thing about ghosts is they can manifest a little bit without energy, but they do need energy to manifest. So that is why you tend to see flickering lights and like weird electronic anomalies, because they try to draw energy from those sources in order to manifest even more, like maybe give themselves the strength to show themselves or to move an object. They've also been known to, if you don't have any, ground electrical stuff, they can even drain batteries. And the way that works is they don't drain the entire battery, but they'll shut off your device that has a battery in it. And then you have to turn it back on. Sometimes they do drain them completely. And of course, if you have a completely full battery and then all of a sudden your battery is totally dead, that's a pretty compelling thing that something might be there trying to draw on that.
We have a question from a viewer. It says, from Bruce Roost asks, so with the EMF scanning, is there a possibility of communication to any degree? And I'd like to add, what type of device do you use for this EMF scanning?
Well, they actually make EMF devices. That's just a tool that electricians and such use. My dad used to bring them home. He worked in maintenance for the school board, and sometimes he would bring home EMF readers and we would play with them in the kitchen. So they're just a standard item, that it's not a special ghost tool. I went on the ghost tour in Key West that brings you to that fort. I don't remember the name of the fort, but it has the cursed Robert the Doll, and they'll give you EMF readers there to carry around to check for spikes. So as far as the question goes about the EMF scanning and communication, you can in fact get some very basic communication going with a paranormal being using EMF, because you can, if they're responsive, they may be willing to trigger the EMF as a form of, acknowledging they're there or acknowledging yes to your question.
Let me see. I was going to ask you, what are the most notable ghost stories that stand out in your mind from history? Is there anything that stands out to you that you really like and draw information or inspiration from?
Oh my gosh. There's so many, and I've read about and watched so many episodes about them. I don't think that I could pick one that really stands out the most. There are a lot of really fun ones that I enjoy watching about, like the Winchester Mansion. That I don't know if you know anything about the construction of that building, but
Still have not gone there, but still I'd like to go there.
Yeah, I would love to go there. It's up in the air whether or not that place is haunted, because there have been plenty of investigators who go there, and sure, weird stuff happens. But one of the biggest things about the house is the way it's built. It is believed that Mrs. Winchester built the house as a maze so that the spirits couldn't find their way to her, because she believed that all of the people who were killed with Winchester rifles, she felt guilty for that and felt like the spirits were going to come after her. So that's one of the theories about that one. I enjoy that one, and seeing the architecture of the house makes it even more mysterious and fun. Some of my favorite ghost stories are actually some that aren't that historical or well known. I heard of a ghost story semi-recently of a man who bought a really old Victorian mansion that was completely dilapidated. It was, it was rotting away, but he saw it and he just knew he had to have it, and that he had to remodel it, and he was going to remodel it, and then he was going to sell it. And he stuck to all the original plans and tried to make it as close to original as possible in every way. And by the time he was done, of course, it was beautiful, and he started having some weird little paranormal things happening, but he started getting this feeling like he couldn't sell the house. So he was kind of scared about that. There's a ghost here and it doesn't want me to leave and it's trying to keep me here. And he actually ended up calling in paranormal investigators, and they determined that the original owner of the house was a woman who loved this house so much that she took care of it as best as she could. She had an immaculate garden. She kept it clean. She was very proud of this house and loved it. And when she passed away, her husband married a new woman, and this woman did not like his ex-wife, his late wife. She did not like the late wife at all. So she hated the house because it was the first wives, and she didn't take care of it. She let the garden go to shit. Excuse my language. I think my dad's listening. Sorry, Dad. And just really let this house go. And that's why the house went into, such disrepair, because this woman hated the previous owner so much. So what these investigators determined was that it was actually the original owner, and that feeling he was getting wasn't her trying to be a malicious ghost keeping him there, but rather she loved so much that what he did with the house, she just didn't want him to leave. And they used, some communication devices to speak with this woman's spirit, and they asked her, if he were to sell it to a family who loved it as much as you do, would you be okay? And she answered yes. So
wow.
That was a happy story, I thought. Like, how cool is it that this ghost appreciated your work so much, and then you were able to, find out that the feeling of not being able to sell wasn't something scary. It was something actually pretty sweet.
Nice. I read up a little bit on ghosts last night. I did my very important research on Wikipedia, and I saw a reference in there that it seemed that the classic ghost stories arose in the Victorian period. And I'm curious, what is it with Victorian houses, and why does it seem like ghosts like those so much? And what other sorts of locations might ghosts like?
Honestly, will haunt anywhere. I think that the reason why Victorian houses have so much activity is because a lot of them were built and designed by a family who it ends up staying in their family for a fairly long time, and many of the family members die in the house. And so it makes sense that these families who loved these houses so much and put so much care and love into building them and decorating them and keeping them would want to stay in their home. And that actually kind of goes into the rest of your question, where you asked what kind of places do ghosts usually like to go. The theory is that, they all are, not theory, but like one of the myths, so to speak, quote unquote, is that ghosts only haunt old places. Ghosts only haunt because they're angry, but there are actually stories of ghosts who after they died, they didn't die in the location that they haunt, but they end up going and haunting like their favorite bar, their favorite hotel, their favorite restaurant that they used to dine at when they were alive. So they can really be anywhere, and they can crop up in newer construction as well, because there can be, of course, someone could have died recently. I think, as I mentioned, I did mention earlier about how they're usually bound to a property or an object. Someone could bring an object into a new home and end up with a ghost there. So there isn't actually technically a certain area that ghosts prefer. But I think Victorian houses are popular because big families lived there for many generations, and bars and restaurants and hotels end up getting haunted a lot because there were so many people who went in and out of there, and there are people who die in them, as well as the people who loved them so much in life that they want to go back in death. So I think that's why those types of places tend to have more activity, but it's not the only place ghosts like.
And so do you think it's mostly that ghosts have wanted to stay here, or are they being punished, or are they sort of in the waiting room? What causes them to be here in this place instead of elsewhere?
A lot of times it's because they don't want to leave. Sometimes they don't know how to leave. Other times, I don't view it as a punishment for them, but if there is an angry spirit around, they may have stuck around because they're mad, they don't want to give up their house, they don't want someone new there, or they were such an angry person in life that they want to keep being, they want to keep terrorizing people in real life.
We have a question from a viewer.
Okay.
Karen Savalabia says, does Tiff have any suggestions for people to help others fine-tune any possible medium abilities? His 16-year-old daughter, born in and adopted from Russia, has talked for many years about seeing spirits, and we feel she may have a connection.
Well, my first question would be, and again, this goes back to the somber subject I brought up before. Of course, this is a medical question, so that's all private. Definitely don't have to answer this. But my first thing would be making sure that you bring her to a psychiatrist or something, and just to make sure that there is nothing else going on.
See, that's a good
there are many
answer.
times, though, where, and actually I can never remember it off the top of my head, but I do have a note of what it's called. Let me find what it's called. There are actually psychiatrists and psychologists who do agree that there are people who have psychic-like abilities, or even may show signs of being possessed. And while these doctors themselves don't necessarily believe in psychics or demons or whatever, they have acknowledged that there is some sort of something that happens with the brain that they can't figure out and that they can't treat, and that the best way to deal with it is actually to embrace it. Like if it's a psychic power, try to embrace it. If it's if they feel that they're possessed, let them have an exorcism, because even if it is a psychological thing and not a true possession, the act of the exorcism will actually make them feel better. So when it comes to children with psychic abilities, the best thing you can do is if you're able to find somebody local who can work with your daughter and kind of get a better feel of what type of abilities she might have, because different psychics do have different abilities. You know, some can see the future, some speak with the spirit realm, some are, you know, very connected with tarot cards. You don't know. It's, you know, people think of psychics as all encompassing. They can do it all, but that's not actually how it works. So finding somebody who can help identify what kind of things that your daughter is experiencing is important. And they can help her hone those, but also it's important, if you are somebody who has special abilities like that, you can be vulnerable to the spirit world, including the more malevolent spirits and, you know, the more demonic spirits. So it's important to make sure that they learn how to protect themselves from that, so that they don't bring anything terrible into their lives or into your home.
Speaking of mediums, what do you think about these sort of television mediums who speak to the dead on television and bring messages from loved ones that have passed and things like that? Do you watch any of those?
I'm not super convinced by TV mediums personally. They tend to be very general. And the other thing is that a lot of it is staged. So I'm not a huge fan of the TV psychics. And actually, I have to say that even despite some of my paranormal experiences, for most of my life, I never, ever believed in psychics. But I had a very strange experience on the boardwalk at Atlantic City, where I was there. I was visiting with a friend, and we were just walking down the boardwalk. You know, we had our Italian ice, taking touristy pictures, and there was a little booth like get a psychic reading. And my friend was like, why don't you go in there? And I was like, okay, we're on vacation, whatever, for fun. And I honestly expected to go in there, and we're in Atlantic City, and I don't remember which hotel we were staying at. It was on the boardwalk, but of course it's a casino. So I really expected to go into this place and just have this woman tell me that I was gonna have great luck at the slots and I should go play blackjack and my vacation is gonna be so great. But my reading was really, it was kind of not really negative, but she got so many things with specific dates and stuff. And some of them, were like some negative things that had happened in my life. And I came out of her booth and I was like, what? Like, what just happened? Like, was that real? And my friends were like, are you okay, Tiff? And I was like, I think so. I just had a really weird psychic reading. So some of the readings she gave me were pretty personal. So I don't know how many of them I'll get into, but one example was, so this trip was in September of 2014. And in November of 2014, I was moving away from Florida to California. And when I went in to this psychic, being so skeptical, I didn't tell her anything. And everything she said to me, I just kept a straight face. I didn't acknowledge. I didn't smile and nod or shake my head no. I just kind of sat there like, I'm just going to listen to what she says. Mm-hmm. She said, in 3 months, you have a move coming up. Well, it's September. November is 3 months from now. And she told me it's not the right time. Oh. And I was like, I didn't say anything, but afterwards I was like, I should have asked her why it's not the right time. Why did she say that? I ended up moving and things were good for about a year. And then I started getting sick with pot. which if my friends are watching, they know all about that, and I know you know about that. I don't know how in detail people want me to get on POTS since this is paranormal, but
spell that out.
I've
What is that called?
Well, it's the abbreviation is POTS, like POTS.
Okay.
But it's called postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. So if anybody wants to look that up, they feel free. I came down with that about a year after being in LA, and so again, it could be just a total coincidence, but sometimes it's hard not to think back to that psychic reading and her telling me it's not the right time, and then I'm like, what if I didn't move?
Yeah.
Would I have not come down with POTS? Or my diagnosis, it took me years to get my diagnosis, and my diagnosis came from a doctor who lives 5 minutes away from where I live now. So it's like, well, if I hadn't moved, would I have gotten a diagnosis sooner? She also told me that I had a friend who was gonna get married and that it wasn't the right guy, but that I needed to just pretend that I was happy. I don't think she said guy. I think she just said you have a friend who's getting married and it's not the right person, but you need to pretend to be happy for them. And I was like, none of my friends are dating anybody. Nobody's getting ready to get married. Again, this was February of 2015. So just, a few months later, a good friend of mine who had met this guy who she'd only been dating him for about 3 months, and they got engaged. And I knew it was a terrible idea. And I wasn't thinking of the psychic at the time, and when she told me this information that she was getting married to this guy who she hadn't known very long, and I had heard some sketchy things about him, I didn't support it. I was like, don't do it. At least wait. Please don't do it. And she did it, and we didn't talk for like 5 years. So I was like, I guess that was the friend I was supposed to have been supportive of. They are not together anymore, so I was right. They weren't, and so was the psychic. They weren't meant to be together. But yeah, because of how I reacted to her marriage news, we didn't talk for many years.
Wow.
So yeah, there are a few other things that were sketchy, but that gets into more of the personal stuff and involves some of my other family members. So I don't want to involve them too much, but
sure.
Yeah, after that, I was like, I think a lot of psychics are phonies, but this woman seemed legit, and I didn't keep her card or anything, because immediately after the reading, like I said, I was so weirded out. When I got back to the hotel room, I threw her card in the trash. She was like, you can call me if you have any questions. But then, when all this stuff started happening, I was like, I wish I had her card so I could call her and ask her.
Yeah.
Or why didn't I ask more questions when I was in there?
Do you think that some people think that there is a connection between ghosts and extraterrestrials? Have you found anything about that?
Sorry, one more time on that?
Some people believe that there is a connection between ghosts and extraterrestrials. Have you found anything about that?
Personally, no. I actually don't know a whole lot about the realm of UFOs and aliens, but I haven't personally seen any overlap, really. I mean, they may be able to do some of the... whose mic volume? Sorry, I just saw someone said mic volume.
I'm guessing that's my mic volume, Muscat Grape. Was that my problem?
Oh, it's you. It's not me. All right, I'm good.
I need to turn myself up. Okay.
So, yeah, as far as that goes, I don't really think there's an overlap. And it would be my belief that paranormal activity due to ghosts and spirits and stuff like that are completely separate from UFOs. I think that, UFOs and aliens are their own thing.
Okay, hold on just a moment while I try to adjust this mic level.
Okay.
Actually, that's all the way up, so that's not going to get any better, so I'm just going to talk louder into the mic. And hopefully that will help.
Just put your lips right onto the mic.
Right onto the mic. That's probably too loud. All right. I was going to ask you about what's the connection with tarot cards and Ouija boards and ghosts. How does that combine?
The belief is that with tarot cards and with Ouija boards, they're a form of being able to communicate with spirits and with the other side. The thing about tarot cards is they're not safe unless they're gifted to you. I don't know why, again, because that's, even though I am into like the ghosts and demon type hauntings, I am not super familiar with all of the psychic things. So tarot cards communicate with the spirit realm to help, guide. Now, a Ouija board, on the other hand, people in the paranormal community very strongly believe that Ouija boards are a portal to another realm, and that's how we end up with demons and whatnot entering this realm. Mm-hmm. So Ouija boards are actually considered fairly dangerous unless you know how to use them and you know how to make sure that you close that portal when you're done using them. So there may be some spirits that come through, like ghost type spirits that come through for a Ouija board, but it's more likely that you're gonna accidentally leave yourself vulnerable to something more evil.
We got a couple of messages here on the chat. We got one from StarTag 2020. It says, Miss Tina next to the Tropicana Casino. Ah!
I don't think her name was Tina. I think her name was Sylvia. And I know I wasn't staying at the Tropicana. Maybe I was at the Borgata. I apologize. I think I just flicked my microphone, so if it made an annoying sound, sorry, everybody.
I will be right back. I need to make a small volume adjustment across the room. Enjoy the theremin while I'm away.
Okay, since Carl's gone, I'm going to read this. I see a question in the regard to the earlier topic of ghosts having location favoritism, the belief the ghost is a voyeur. Is there a possibility of personally harboring a spirit as a possible form of entertainment for the spirit and develop a mutual kinship of sorts? It could be Sylvia Brown. I really can't remember her name, but her first name is definitely Sylvia. And to my knowledge, she had been on the boardwalk for many, many, many years. Now back to the other question. I don't know if I quite understand the question, but it seems like you're asking about developing a friendship with a spirit who's residing at their favorite location. Is that what you meant? That was a question from Bruce Daroost.
Brewster Roost. Well, if anyone else has more questions, please throw them into the chat. We are now at $16, so thank you to everyone who has contributed. I'm going to throw in a couple of those little night bots here so everyone knows what's going on, in case anyone has just tuned in. I was going to add in just a comment that an author named Whitley Strieber, who is an author on extraterrestrial experiences that he's had, he believes that there is a connection between ghosts and aliens, and he has been writing a book now with his wife, who recently passed away. They are writing a book together. So imagine that, writing a book with a ghost.
I mean, I think that's probably the best way to write a book about ghosts and paranormal things.
Is to ask a ghost themselves.
An actual ghost, yeah. Did you, when you're reading that book, did you see anything? I mean, what did he say about his theory on the connection between? extraterrestrial and ghosts.
This was maybe a couple of years ago, and I haven't kept up on it, so I don't. He said that he was not ready to talk about it yet, but that he had found a very clear connection that was definitive between the afterlife and extraterrestrials.
All right. Well, I'll definitely look that up. Maybe his theory's out there now, available to the public.
It might be. Yeah.
Because as far, I mean, again, like I said, I don't know a ton about extraterrestrial things, but yeah, everything that I've experienced doesn't seem connected. My friends who have had extraterrestrial experiences, theirs greatly differ from mine. Although the one thing that it seems that people who experiencing hauntings and extraterrestrial experiences, a lot of them get sleep paralysis. And so I think that sometimes people believe that they're having a paranormal or extraterrestrial experience because of the sleep paralysis. So those two things definitely overlap, because some people, when they go into sleep paralysis, they think they see a ghost or an evil spirit. In fact, it's nicknamed old hag syndrome, because a lot of people reported being unable to move and feeling something very heavy on their chest, and then looking up and seeing an old hag like hunched over, sitting on their, sitting on top of their chest and menacingly, and it's hard for them to breathe. Where other people experience their sleep paralysis as being on a medical table with beings surrounding them and doing things to them, and they can't move. So, of course, that's not to say that maybe their experiences weren't sleep paralysis, and maybe they really did experience that. But to my knowledge, that type of thing is usually just sleep paralysis.
Got it. We have a comment here from Illuminist33. He says, I saw a shadowy outline person that was glitching, like it was in and out of existence. It was 2 a.m. and it saw me looking at it, and it ran off very, very fast. As it ran off, it seemed to remove something from inside me. I walked home in agony in my chest. Anything familiar that you can explain for me?
Well, 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m., all those hours, 3 a.m. is technically considered the witching hour, but kind of all of those hours are in the witching hour realm. So I guess my question would be to Luminist was, what were you doing? Where were you when you saw this shadowy person? And what kind of agony in your chest, and what kind of feeling did you get when you felt like something was removed?
Let's see in the next few minutes if Illuminist wants to continue on that. What do you think about taking some calls now?
I'm down for calls.
Actually, real quickly, let me share a few of my stories. Let me get these in here.
Okay. I do have another story that my friend who isn't able to call wants me to share. Go. You can do yours first. The one she gave me, it's a short one.
Okay. I'll just run through my 4 little experiences that were kind of creepy. One of them, I was walking outside my apartment maybe 12 years ago or something, and I was about to go up the stairs, and this was in the middle of the day, so there was nobody around, and I felt someone very clearly put their hand on my shoulder, and it scared the absolute crap out of me. I had this massive adrenaline rush because I thought someone was maybe grabbing me or attacking me out of nowhere, because I was alone walking. There was nobody around. I turned around and there was nobody there. And I don't know what that ever was, but it was such a freaky feeling to suddenly, like someone grabbed my shoulder. It could be that maybe it was like one of those Trump photos where Jesus is standing there with his hand on Trump's shoulder. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it could be the Trump ghost, the one who touches shoulders. The
Trump Jesus ghost. Few other things that happen. Oh,
that
go ahead.
Story though, that's a common thing. Ghosts, like I was saying, they're not usually the ones responsible for things like scratching and pulling you out of bed, but they can sometimes muster the energy to, move some objects, but also like touch you, shoulder, tap you on the shoulder. People have even felt from nice spirits hugs. So
Another experience I had was that my mom's house in Florida seemed to be haunted when I was a teenager, because we would both have these experiences in the middle of the night where we would hear someone walking through the house and coming into our room. Like, I would be in my room sleeping, and I'd wake up because someone was coming into my room, but nobody was there when I would look. And she would have the same thing, and she would yell, like, "Who's there? Is that you? Why? What's going on? What are you doing?" And this happened a few times. So that was a mysterious experience. And I would hear things on the roof all the time at night, which seemed like someone was walking on the roof. Things like that. I had a very vivid, strange experience with, I don't know, did you ever meet a guy named Stephen McCarthy back in Florida? Did you ever meet the Wizard?
No, I never did.
Or hear any of us talking about him?
I probably heard you talking about him, but I wouldn't have known who he was, since, we have nicknames for everybody.
Yeah, right. So I met this guy at Barnes & Noble late at night when he was dressed like, in all black Victorian clothes with like gloves and this interesting like medallion, this magical thing. And he had like a cane. And it turned out later that the cane actually had like a sword in the cane. And so I ended up going over to his house, and we hung out in there in this room that he called his study, that he had like tinfoil over the windows. He had full of all these crazy books, and he had a real mummy's foot in like a glass container.
Where do you even go to get one as just like a regular person?
He said that it found its way to him, and he knew its name and everything.
Well, you know what? As soon as I said regular person, I was like, oh wait, he's a wizard. My bad.
Yeah. And so we would do he would do like tarot cards and stuff, and we'd hang out and talk about things all the time and do like sessions. He was kind of like an informal therapist about things. And one time he had me sit back in this chair, and he had me he's like, "All right, I want you to close your eyes, and I'm just going to put my hand in front of your forehead, and I just want you to just tell me what you see." And I was like, "Yeah, okay, whatever. This sounds fun." So I sat back and closed my eyes, and he put his hand there, and instantly I saw this very vivid green glowing triangle with like electricity shooting out of it. And it was coming at me from far away, and in the middle of it was the eyeball. And it got closer and closer, and when it got right up in front of my face, I heard the thought, "We are teaching you secret and ancient things." And then I felt this shock through my body, and I jumped and started laughing, and I started looking around like, "What the hell did you just do? Are you like shocking me or something? Do you have this chair electrified or what?" And he just kind of like closed his hand. He said, "Interesting." And he like went back and sat in his chair and had me tell him what I saw.
Did you actually get any ancient and mysterious lessons from it?
So the message that I took from that is that I should become a Freemason, and that's what I went and did. So.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, but I don't know if I ever learned the secret and ancient things. Maybe
sounds like your friend may have had perhaps a little bit of a psychic ability.
It's possible.
Let me go. Hold on. We got a luminous answered again.
Oh, okay.
I was walking
I didn't
home.
see the chat was
the door of a
scrolling
church. It felt like it took all the wind energy from me. It took 20 minutes. Okay. So, sorry, I have a bunch of questions because, you have to narrow this stuff down. Did the feeling happen after you walked through the door? Sorry, I just got a little close to my mic. Might have gotten loud. Did it happen as you were walking out of the door, after you walked out of the door? When exactly did it happen? And have you had any type of experiences since then, like whether it's something you saw or felt, or even, do you ever get any residual pain in your chest?
Hey, Richard Running Man is here again. Welcome back.
I guess he took a break from running.
Let's see. What else we got? Goal. Okay. I'll throw in one of my real quick stories. Another one is that I was I don't remember where I was, some sort of convention or something, and there was like a psychic reader there that would do readings, some sort of readings. And I talked to her, and she did some sort of reading. I think it might have been I Ching or something like that. And she said, right now right now there are two people that you can possibly work with. And if you work with one of them, things will be bad. And if you work with the other one, things will be good. And I thought, oh, that's really specific and interesting. I mean, that could be some general statement that you say, but it was like you're being approached by two people with opportunities. One of them will lead to good and one will lead to bad. And at that time, I was right in the middle of having things starting to happen with Trace Bruance and Mimicry Records and also Steve Vai. And I wasn't sure if there was a choice between the two, but it was this weird thing that both happened at the same time. And I ended up doing a bunch of stupid stuff and going with the Trey direction. And I wonder, was that psychic trying to stop me from going with Trey or going with Steve Vai?
Have things gone bad with Trey?
Things went kind of bad, but they also went good. So I don't know. It definitely was maybe at the time it was a very bad experience. So maybe he was the right choice,
or maybe it would have been even better with Steve Vai.
Maybe so.
We'll never know. Well, we might if you go visit Sylvia at the Atlantic City Boardwalk.
So is that who your person was? Was it Sylvia? Did we find out?
Yeah, someone said they found her, but because I remember her first name was Sylvia, but they said they could find her on there. So it sounds like she's still there. So
let's get her on the phone.
Yeah, can we get her to call in?
Yeah. So Illuminist has another answer here. Do you want to read that, or you want me to read it?
You can read it.
Okay. Luminous says, so I saw this thing. It looked right at me. The second it realized I could see it, it sprinted off at 1,000 kilometers per hour. That's very fast. At that moment, it felt like it punched me in the chest and winded me. Yes, not long after that, I was walking down a different road and saw a spider's thread in front of me from a tree. I saw it too late to avoid, so walked through it, and the point where the thread ended and the spider should be was at the solar plexus level and did the same thing as I walked into it.
It did the same thing as in it went through you?
I guess it winded him.
Oh, it winded him too. Okay. Honestly, what it sounds like, it doesn't actually sound like there was something evil or malevolent. It actually sounds like whatever it was scared of you, because if it saw you looking and then ran away, it's not uncommon for spirits to be scared too. Some of them are not, but some of them try to, like hide behind things, or they might try to get a peek at you, and as soon as you turn around and see them, they haul ass the other way. And the feeling you might have felt would be just their energy moving through you, and it may have left you feeling a little bit off for the rest of the night. So I don't think that you have anything to worry about. You actually just have a cool story to tell people, because a lot of people who have paranormal experiences. Oh, you were deeply into Satanism at the time? Well, the reason why I don't think that it was something to do with Satan is because you haven't said that you've had anything else other than the spider web and the spider knocking the wind out of you. If you were into Satanism and you had opened yourself up to a demon, they don't typically leave on their own. Once you let them in, you have to take other measures to get rid of them. And that's why that stuff is dangerous, and that's why they recommend not to use Ouija boards unless you are familiar with them.
I was going to ask, what is that connection between demons and ghosts? Is there a connection there? It sounds like maybe there is.
I don't personally know if there's a connection between them. I think that I do think they can probably interact to a certain extent, because there are instances of people's dead relatives and their spirits trying to help protect against a more evil spirit, such as a demon. But they come about in different ways. And like I said, the best way to think about ghosts is that they were people, whereas demons aren't. The reason why they kind of go hand in hand is because of the fact that they have a similar way of, attaching themselves to houses or properties. In the case of demons, they can attach to a person, which is called obsession, but they can also, take over from the inside, which everyone knows is called possession. Whereas ghosts don't really do that. They don't attach to a person, they attach to objects and properties. So they're definitely different entities, but they tend to fall under the same category because, people who are doing paranormal investigations have the possibility of running to either or.
I have posted. Oh, we have a call. We've got a call already. Let's take our first caller and see what happens. Hello, you are on Out of This World.
Hi, Out of This World. I think that your show is awesome.
Oh, thank you.
I have some questions for your guest,
Great.
Mrs. Tiff. My name is Timmy. I'm from Tulsa, Oklahoma. I live in the Blue Dome District, which is kind of an older area, and I inherited my house from my aunt. And I was hoping you could guide me and give me some information here. Hopefully, my house it's over 100 years old, and when I first moved in, I was noticing many strange things, like my pictures would be rearranged, or sometimes, like one time I came home and all the locks on my doors they were different. I had to get them changed. They weren't the locks to my key. And then recently, I've noticed. Lately, a few nights lately, I'd be asleep and I'd wake up and I'd be frozen in my sleep. I couldn't move, but I'd look up and I'd see something floating over me with a woman's face, an old woman's face. And I wanted to know if there's something I could do to maybe rid myself of this craziness.
Well, if it weren't for all of your other experiences, just the woman over your face kind of sounds like the sleep paralysis I was talking about earlier. I guess my question would be, do you live with anyone else? Do they experience these types of things? Do you have any pets that might act weird?
Yes, I can't keep pets. That was the other thing I was going to tell you. Every time I have a pet, well, one time I had cats and they would disappear, and then one time I had a dog, a German Shepherd, went to the second floor and it was scared and jumped out the window.
Okay. And let's see. Have you had any, other than like certain objects being moved or, your locks being weird, has anything else violent happened?
Anything what? I'm sorry, I didn't understand the word you said.
Sorry, anything violent of the sort? Or
No,
has it all
violent,
just been kind of
nothing,
mischievous?
Just scary, just weird. Like I say, lights will turn off and on. And like I said, the weirdest thing was my locks were different when I came home. They were different. And then, of course, like I said, my dogs and my cats. And I actually had a rabbit, and it was like running around acting crazy. So something's going on. And so I was wondering if maybe I could I actually called a woman, a shaman lady, and she burned some sage, but that didn't work. And then I called a priest to come and bless the house, thinking that might work, and that didn't work. So I don't know. It's weird.
And how long did you say you've been in the house?
I've been in the house for about 8 years.
And it's happened since the beginning?
It started right away, but it just gets worse and worse. This is, like I say now, the worst is when this apparition is floating above me. The crazy face lady floats above me, and I can't move, and I wake up, I'm paralyzed in my sleep almost.
And have you ever gotten any scratch marks, or have you ever heard any like growling sounds or anything like that?
I've never heard sounds, but I have had marks, like little pink dots on my skin.
Okay. Because of how aggressive the sounds and it's getting more active, it does sound to me like it could be something demonic. So, but so it makes me wonder, do you know, you inherited the house from your aunt. Do you know if she was ever involved in anything occult? Like, did she play with Ouija boards or have friends over, or anything like that
no,
you know
I don't
of?
think so, but I know many people died in the house. I don't know everybody, but I know like my aunt died there, and I think her sister, and I believe some other people too. They used to rent rooms because the second story, which is where I mostly stay, most of the that's where most of the stuff happens. But I think some of the room people that stay in the room, I think they died there too.
Okay, and do you have any stories from your aunt or any of the people who live there that ever had?
No, nothing like that. No, everybody tells me she was just a good, God-fearing woman. Because I've told my family, and they tell me I'm crazy, that I don't know what I'm talking about.
Okay, so well, it sounds like whatever this is happened when you arrived or around the time you arrived. So it's either something in the house that doesn't like your presence, or it could even be something that somehow got attached to you.
I don't know. I didn't bring any furniture with me. I just moved right into the house. I mean, I brought my clothes and my stereo and my records and things and my comic books, but that's it. Some of my action figures, but that was it.
Okay. Well, yeah, it sounds like it's either attached to you or the house. My first thought would definitely be something more on the demonic side. I wish I could say that it was friendly ghosts, but you've been there for so long, and all of these things that they keep getting more aggressive and scarier. And you're seeing like full-blown apparitions, and they're doing a lot of physical stuff, which, like I was saying earlier, if you were listening, ghosts do need to draw a lot of energy, whereas demonic entities don't. I know you said you had a shaman and even a priest. I'm wondering,
yes, that is correct.
Maybe
it was a lady shaman. She came and burned sage in the house.
Yeah, well, sage isn't gonna cut it for something demonic. And actually, even an exorcism, sometimes they need to be done more than once, but I would be curious to know if you would be interested in maybe getting in contact after the show to discuss an investigation.
Yes,
maybe?
anything to help, because it's scary. I can't even get women to come to my house because they're scared. They're scared. So that would be great.
Okay, I'll find a way to get your email address, or Carl, does the number show up on your Google Voice to call back?
Yeah, I saw a number there show up.
Okay, so we should have your info, and I'll try to get in contact with you, and we can discuss an investigation, and then I can maybe help you.
Thank you, Ms. Tiff. I appreciate
narrow
it.
it down.
Thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you for calling.
All right, thank you.
Wow. That's some intense stuff there.
Yeah, that sounds serious. That sounds like something that it would be dangerous for him to keep living there, and then also if he ever wanted to sell it, it might cause him some problems.
Yeah, I was not prepared to hear all of that. So, wow. My wife just brought in this book, by the way. We finally found it. It is the Field Guide to Demons, Fairies, Fallen Angels, and Other Subversive Spirits.
Oh, that's nice. I know, like I think we talked about this the other day, how I am not, a demonologist. So, I know the basics of demons, but there's actually, for anyone who's interested, there is actually such a thing as demonology, but it's a lot of information because there's demons from pretty much every religion, even, not quite religions, even like cult type stuff. They come in so many different names. So that's actually like a whole other, that could be a whole other show. Talking just about demons. But on the same token, there is also angelology. So, fear not, everybody. There is good to counteract the evil.
Brewster Roost is posting here some things in the chat. I might be missing some things in the chat because there are several messages. Brewster Roost says, I still do the occasional Latin invocation as a tequila drinking ritual. Started around 6 years ago. Since then, I have had odd I've had odd experiences. EMF readers, like at the Fort Knox Paranormal Tour, have been going off the hook. I've been called unholy or have a dark aura by complete strangers. I have odd luck, like narrowly avoiding near-death experiences at work, then feeling physically and mentally tired after, taking no damage when I rear-ended someone at 90 miles per hour. I used to be a hippie, and now I cannot stand the smell of sage. And also, churches are very uncomfortable to be in.
That sounds like it doesn't sound like a possession. That sounds like the obsession, which would be the entity that has latched onto you. And that would be why some of the more negative things are happening. And, we don't think of demons necessarily protecting you from car accidents in the same way that an angel might. But, it's possible for them to have some, they have some greater plan for you. So they're trying to keep you as theirs and not letting you get injured or have any damage at 90 miles per hour. So that doesn't sound great either, if I'm being honest.
We're able to take calls right now. There's a phone number on your screen on the video if anyone else would like to call.
Yeah, and anyone who's telling stories in chat, if we're missing stuff you're saying, you have more questions, and you think it would be easier to just call, feel free.
Yeah, feel free to just call that number.
When I start getting talking, I talk with my hands a lot, and I zone out and don't read the chat text.
Let's see what else we've got here in the chat. Official Broadcast was telling a few stories of where he used to have sleep paralysis and experience a demonic version of his brother or dad walking in and biting his neck. And he would feel the breath and the teeth sinking in.
Well, with sleep paralysis, what's interesting about sleep paralysis is that you're in a state of being both awake and asleep. You're still kind of in dream phase, but your brain is somewhat awake and you can open your eyes and you can actually see the room you're in. But because your body is still in a dream state, you can see things that aren't there. And you can even feel things touching you. So once again, I will say that is not necessarily what your experience was. I would want to know if you had any marks turn up from that. Has it happened again? But also, what kind of relationship do you have with your father and your brother? Would that be something that they would do or want to do?
Wow.
Whether maliciously or...
Coming in and biting his neck. That would be an interesting relationship with his brother and father. I suppose it could happen. Have we still got you here, Tiff? I'm just making sure.
Yeah, I'm here. So I was reading Illuminous. They asked if they call from the UK, will it cost me my soul? I'm trying to think of, isn't there Google Voice and stuff like that where you could, just use your Wi-Fi connection to call so it wouldn't cost you any minutes or data that's international?
Official Broadcast says that his brother and father have never actually bit him before. So that's good.
And you didn't wake up with any marks or anything? Well, while we're waiting for... Oh, yeah, no marks. Yeah, I would say that was probably just good old-fashioned sleep paralysis. If more things were going on around the house or around you, then it might be something else. But it sounds like sleep paralysis. So since the chat slowed down and we don't have any calls yet, I'll tell my friend's story. It's a short
yeah, go
one.
for that. Let's hear it.
It does involve me. It's just a little cute one. My friend, her name is Heather. She lived in a house that I only had a couple of weird little experiences there, and I was always the one that would kind of pick on everybody who was scared of ghosts. So anytime anything scary happened, I was the asshole who, exacerbated everyone's terror. But there was one night in particular, we were teenagers and we liked playing Dance Dance Revolution. So we would have, our whole group of friends there. There was 5 of us. and we were playing Dance Dance Revolution, and one of our friends' phones starts ringing, her cell phone. And the phone was coming from Heather's landline. The house that we were at, none of us touched the phone. No one else was there besides us playing DDR. And I believe it called, she answered and nothing was there. And I believe it called her at least one more time, possibly even a third time. So that was one of those experiences where every single person, all 5 of us were like, okay, we all experienced that, and we have no idea why the phone that we're looking at that's sitting on the hook just dialed our friend Sarah. How did this happen? So that was a fun one. I did also want to mention a type of haunting because, a lot of people are familiar with ghosts and demons and, all the stereotypical stuff. But one thing that doesn't get talked about a lot is something called residual hauntings.
Okay, residual hauntings.
That is an imprint of energy from past events that just plays over and over again. So it's not a true haunting, and you can't interact with them. And so you will hear steps. You might even see the entities. It can be very scary when you don't know what it is. And it can be even more terrifying than a regular haunting at first until you know it's a residual haunting, because since it is a residual haunting playing the past over and over, it tends to happen, like every day, sometimes all day. And, it's not exclusive to nighttime, which is another subject. It does seem like ghost activity is, there's more of it at night. It is a bit of a myth that hauntings only happen at night. They can happen any time of the day. Ghosts don't, they don't really actually care what time of the day it is. But I think the reason why we tend to experience more at night is people are more open to it at night. How you might be able to watch a scary movie during the day, but then night falls and you're like, all right, I can't watch this anymore. It's kind of that same mentality. Also, like I mentioned earlier, there's the witching hour. So if people are starting to dabble in the spiritual realm, it's going to bring up more activity. And then the biggest thing is just the fact that at night, everything's much quieter. You don't have a lot of car background noise, driving by. You don't have people doing lawns. People, if you live with multiple people, a lot of them are already in bed, and all the electronics are off, so you're not hearing TVs and radios and whatnot. So it's easier to be more receptive to it at night. And then the other thing is that when, people do paranormal investigations, especially when they're filming it, it's spookier at night. So people would rather watch that.
We have a couple of questions here. One of them is from Andrew Plays Piano. He says, what do you know about black-eyed children? I recently learned about that and it freaked me out.
Black-eyed children, well, they are usually demonic, as well as being able to, a lot of times people see demons in black masses, but they will also sometimes take the form of children, and they do that because they want to make the person feel at ease. Like, oh, this is just the spirit of a child. Mm-hmm. And I shouldn't be afraid. So they'll do stuff like that, but then you eventually start to see the more evil features, like the black eyes and stuff like that. And if you're able to figure out that it's not a real child, sometimes they may even start showing a different form.
The next question comes from Muscat Grape. By the way, that's very disturbing, the demonic children. So the question is, what's the correlation with temperature drops and paranormal activity? Let's take a call real quick, and we'll get back to that one. Here we go. Okay. You are on Out of This World.
How are you, Carl? My name is Steve. Great show.
Hey, Steve. Thank you.
And a great host that you have tonight as well.
Yeah, there's a great guest host here.
Well,
Do you have a question for Tiff?
1982, if you don't mind. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, sorry about that. Repeat that.
And I'd like to take you back to a story starting in 1982, if you don't mind.
The volume is a little low, so maybe if you could...
I was able to make it out, but yeah, if we could try to get him clearer. He said he wants to take us all the way back to 1982 for a ghost story.
All right, I'm going to try to do this. I've got pretty bad reception here. I don't know why, but I'll be as clear as possible.
Go for it.
In 1982, there was a famous architect in Pennsylvania who decided he was going to build the largest nightclub in the country. And it was in Glen Mills, Pennsylvania, about 45 minutes outside of Philadelphia. His name was Leon Altimos. It took a budget of about $13 million and constructed a 53,000 square foot nightclub.
That's huge.
In their light show was approximately $1.2 million, and back then you could see what the expense would be in today's standards. Their sound system was purchased from KISS. It was their road system for their concert tours, which was installed inside of the club. The place had 11 bars on 4 different levels and was approximately 175 foot from dance floor to ceiling, with 6 VIP boxes and 12 personal suites on the roof. So that gives you a prerequisite of what the place was like. On opening week, with approximately 3,200 people in the place, a lobster came loose from a mooring and fell and hit a 22-year-old on the dance floor. Her name was Margaret Jones, and they drug her out to the loading dock where she died. There were so many people in the place that the scene was really not noticed by too many people. There was that many people in the place. They went through a huge lawsuit, of course, and the place kind of emptied out. And it was the first job for those of you who ever seen Bar Rescue with John Taffer, it was his first show of trying to revitalize that place after the death of the young girl. Let's move forward 12 years. Actually, 10
So
years.
we're now in 1994?
I'm sorry?
I was saying we're in 1994 then?
Actually, 1993.
Okay.
I got involved with the place as an investor and to convert to an adult entertainment establishment. I actually moved into one of the suites on the roof. That's when the activity started. We started noticing things that would happen in the club. There would be a fire on the floor in the spot that she was killed. There was one night where I was woken up by sound of running water. And this place had its own water system on the roof. I don't know how many thousands of gallons. It was their own self-contained water system. And I opened up the doors to look down into the club, and there was a hole in the ceiling, and that water tower was open, pouring on the spot where the young lady was killed. There was also a movie film there called Mannequin 2, On the Move. She was in one of the scenes of the movie, and when contacted the company about extras, she was not on the extra list, and they couldn't find out who this person was sitting in the scene of one of the movies.
Oh, wow. Do you know where the scene is in the movie?
Yes. Yes, I do.
We should write this down and see if we can, check it out. And you said it's Mannequin 2?
these things happen over and over and over, occurrences. My wife at the time was a choreographer, and she was in the roof area where the spaceship was, and in the spaceship there was an elevator, and the robot, which was actually in Rocky 4, we owned the robot that was in Rocky 4, came out of that spaceship down through the elevator, and it came on the dance floor and it danced with the customers. While she was in there, choreographer, working with some of the dancers, Maggie faced her face to face in the elevator. We went through a huge hassle with the township. They never wanted the place there. And with all the things that happened on the spot that she was killed, finally the place was hit by a small tornado, and it went through the building in the spot that she was killed from the light fixtures, and that's when we decided to close it down. So there was more than one occasion when there was multiple people who came in contact with Margaret Jones, 22 years old, from Glen Mills, Pennsylvania.
Wow. So the place was closed down. Has it been demolished, or is it still around?
The place was demolished and rebuilt as a senior citizen assisted living center.
I wonder if Margaret ever pops up there, or if getting rid of the building itself may have helped her move on. Which I wouldn't be surprised. All of those violent things happening after her violent death in the spot where she died kind of sounds like, she wanted it just gone.
But she was never harmful and we never had any fear of her. There was nights where the spigots went on in the bathroom and the water start running just by themselves, and other things that happened throughout the building, but never any threat to any individual person. I had a pastor
Go ahead.
Who was a former Denver Broncos linebacker. His name was Lynn, 325 pounds, 6'5". And at one night we were locking up. I said, "We have people still in the bar. Could you get rid of them?" And it was her sitting on the corner of the bar, and he turned white as that ghost as she disappeared in front of him. So she has been seen by multiple people, through the time that the place was open.
Well, that's nice. It sounds like she wasn't an angry ghost or anything, and wasn't harmful to anybody. Perhaps it was just she wanted to be able to move on by having the club finally closed down.
Yes, I believe so. I believe that was her intention, which was very costly for me. But don't mess with a higher power, as they say.
Yeah, well, at least, even though it cost you a lot, at least now she is resting in peace.
I don't know. I've never been back there since that event.
Well, I think she is.
So I hope she is. I hope she did find some peace. Yeah.
Well, thank you for your story. It was a good one, and also I'm wondering how many people are going to go watch Mannequin 2. I know I am.
I have never even heard of Mannequin 2, but I liked Mannequin, the first one. I'll have to watch number 2.
Yeah, number 2, the actual footage of the movie was shot in the club. You don't know it's the club because it's done as a not sure. I guess the star of the show was an artist on clothing design. So it was more about clothing design with this mannequin that comes to life. So it's a little different than the original movie, which I guess became a cult film. So, but interesting scene, and I will try. I think I have the videotape of it, and I will try to find the location of the scene and let you guys know about it. And also, I put in the chat, I have friends, if you do a follow-up to the show, I have friends that are of the Leeds family, and the Leeds family was actually part of the Jersey Devil, which was actually called the Leeds Point Devil. So I could put you guys in touch with the actual family that was associated with the story of the Jersey Devil itself.
Didn't somebody mention that the Leeds family in the chat earlier?
I think that was him.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
Yes. So, yeah, I knew them well, and I was a spot that I was afraid to drive by in my younger high school days.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you
I would
very much
definitely
for
be
calling and
interested in
sharing
them.
that.
And yeah, thank you for
Well,
calling.
it was a pleasure. I'll take another call, and much success, and thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Bye-bye now.
Bye. Getting some pretty interesting calls. There's also a post in here by a Illuminist who is asking, he has a strong feeling that paranormal entities are cross-dimensional as opposed to ghosts. As during my Satanism time, you would ritually condition the space to allow things through. He believes that Carl would know about conditioning the space as it's part of Freemason rituals. What are your thoughts on transdimensional beings, demons, ghosts, shadow people, jinn, and all the other things over time seen by people that can't be explained? Also to add this, Halloween also being a time of thinning of the veil between dimensions in a similar way. What do you think, Tiff?
Well, I personally don't think that cross-dimensional entities would be something that is opposed to ghosts. Like there are, cross-dimensional entities and not ghosts. I would be more open to there being both. And actually talking about cross-dimensional, and you talking about this being during a time of Satanism, a lot of people in the paranormal realm, instead of looking at it as, I mean, it is cross-dimensional really if you think about it, but they view them as portals to the other side or the demon world or whatever, which, I mean, yeah, if you get technical about it, what's the difference really between opening a portal to another world or opening a different dimension, a portal to a different dimension? So I would say that there may be cross-dimensional entities that are different from ghosts and demons, but in my experience, the things that come through these types of portals are usually a demonic type entity, possibly some spirits. And I think that
We're getting another call. Should we take it?
the Jinn and shadow people, I think, also fall into those categories. Like shadow people are usually
Good old
considered
shadow
demonic as
people.
well. Go ahead and answer. Sorry.
All right. You are out of this world. Welcome.
Hey, how's it going? Corky here.
Hey, it's official broadcast. What's going on?
I want to start out with a question, and I'd like to bring up some possible experiences I've had, and I'd like to know both your take on it.
Okay.
But the question first is, how much do you think inside a dream, information from the other side might cross over into a dream?
I think that it's completely possible for information from the other side to cross over through a dream. I have had some experiences, but actually one that I don't think that my mom would mind if I share is after I can't remember if it was my grandma and grandpa who had died, but my grandpa died before my grandma. So even if it had been my grandma, what happened was we couldn't find her will. And there was, some family dispute over what was supposed to happen with the property. And my grandpa came to my mom in a dream and told her where it was. And she found it.
Oh,
So I think that in itself is a very clear sign.
I once received a password in a dream, and it was a complicated, misspelled, strange password. And the password worked. I won't
What
say
was
what
the
it,
password for?
I don't want to say what the password was for, but it came to me in a dream, and it worked. And it was very creepy that happened.
So it was
Definitely,
like
good
something deep
memories
web or porny.
No. Nothing like that.
I'm just kidding.
No.
Come on, we have some comic relief
Yeah.
in between all the scary ghost
We'll
stories.
get the
Anyway,
famine
sorry, we're
going
cutting
again.
off our caller.
Speaking of passwords, I have an interesting story about a friend of mine who has a paranormal podcast and about a few books. His name is Joe Giaquinto, and he's also a medium. He has this belief that when someone passes on, they could have some kind of a password that they know about before they pass on, and then they're able to use this password to let people know that it's them when they're coming through. And something like this happened. My grandmother, my mom's mom, had a password, and we all wanted Joe to guess it. And he actually did. He got it. We never told him. We were doing like an investigation at a place that was known for activity, and this was the night that he told us he was gonna get it. He was gonna say it, and he's telling us that he stopped and he picked up candy for some reason. He was doing a book signing in a place that had candy, and he was saying, "Oh, I got peppermint, I got this, I got licorice." The word was licorice, and he actually didn't even buy licorice. He just said it.
And so saying licorice was the password to reaching out to the other side. Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, that was my grandma's preset password.
I've never done any passwords with anyone or actually heard anyone with a password, but there is such a thing as trigger objects. And so it kind of sounds like they could go hand in hand. You know, like instead of an object that triggers somebody, you know, from the other side, it would be the word would act as that object.
Are you talking about like a password where you would be able to find out if the ghost is really them, or what do you mean by a password exactly? I'm almost getting
it. It's like a special word that like you decide to choose that really represents something about you that people would remember, I guess. And then
yeah, it sounds like the password is meant so that they can communicate and make sure that who they're communicating with is their loved one and not some random spirit.
Yeah, I believe so. But yeah, it's something that they've been doing for a while, and it's worked with different people, and I just thought it was a really interesting system.
Yeah, I would love to hear more stories about people who've had code words and whatnot, because like I said, I've not actually had any experiences myself with code words or with, you know, people that I've worked with who have them. Usually it's been trigger objects.
I could talk to my friend a little bit more about it and see who else has had experiences. He hasn't been able to guess another one of my relatives' code words, though. But it was just really interesting that the word licorice just came to him. But another interesting story involving him is I used to work at a museum, like a haunted colonial museum, and there was a lot of happenings over there. And this is where I met this guy. And he had a reading from, he picked up the name Dan Smith. And then we found a trunk, like a really old trunk that said Dan Smith on it. And
I didn't totally understand that.
He was doing like a reading because he's like a medium.
Okay.
And he picked up
At a colonial museum, you said?
Yeah, he picked up Dan Smith. Oh, and then
as a name
actually
in the air.
Yeah, actually, what we did was we had an EVP. I remember we did an EVP, and we were asking, is there anyone out there? Is anyone out there? And then we got the name Smith. And then we did it again, and then we got the name Dan.
What did you say you were doing? An EDT or what?
Yeah, it's an electronic voice phenomenon.
Ah.
Basically, it's when you run a recorder in complete silence and you ask questions. And
Right, and then you can't hear them until after you play it back.
Yeah, and you can get some freaky ones. Like they're categorized in classes. Like there's Class A, which is like completely clear, all the way to Class D, I believe. And some of those Class A ones are really freaky.
I mean, there have been instances where they actually do complete sentences. Of course, all the stuff you see on TV is like one word where it doesn't really sound like anything, but they're like, do you hear that? It sounds like he's saying murder. And then everyone's like, oh my God, yeah, it does. Power of suggestion. But yeah, I mean, the EVP can actually pick up full-on sentences sometimes.
Yeah, I heard one, it sounded like a kid that said, cut himself playing. And that was really freaky.
It said he cut himself playing?
Yeah, it just said cut himself playing.
Cut himself playing.
Sounded like a kid saying it.
Wow.
But I wanted to bring up a few visual phenomena that I had over the years.
Okay.
One instance, in the same museum, there was a lamp, and it just started shooting out sparks and making noises.
What did?
And then there was like an electronic lamp.
Oh, a lamp.
Wall,
okay.
and then they brought over an electrician, and they said there's absolutely nothing wrong with it.
Okay.
It never happened again.
It's mysterious.
And I'd also I'd hear footsteps upstairs when I was downstairs. One time I felt a tapping on my shoulder. I was just kind of sitting down in the chair where I worked, and I felt a tapping on my shoulder.
You felt a tapping on your shoulder?
Yeah.
That's very similar to what I felt. It was someone touching my shoulder.
Did you say that this was at your house? Sorry, the phone connection's kind of bad, so some of the words are not coming through.
Those are the museum that I worked at.
Oh, the museum, okay. Yeah, it definitely sounds like a haunting. A lot of those types of places, museums, especially museums related to, war and things like that, they have tons of activity. I mean, there's uniforms in there, there are firearms in there, even so much as if they have like old ammunition can even attract spirits. So again, that kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier, where ghosts don't necessarily have a favorite place, but when there's a lot of people who went to that place, or there's a lot of objects in that place that have a lot to do with something with the dead, they will congregate there. But yeah, usually when it comes to those types of museums, there's always soldiers and nurses and all kinds of people who were involved in the military that end up in these museums.
I heard one of the craziest places for activity is Gettysburg. People always say the battlefield, there you go, a lot of activity. But this place was interesting because it was taken over in the Revolutionary War during the Quarter War. And it was occupied by British soldiers. And the son of the guy that lived there was actually a spy. There's a show on A&E or one of those channels about that whole spy ring that they did. But there's a lot of interesting history, and they believe some of those people are the people that are still there.
All right. Well, thank you for calling and sharing, as Harold Camping liked to say.
Love that guy. Well,
Definitely. Thank you for sharing those stories. All right.
I just wanted to point out that we need less than $10 for Carl's shirt. So people
Very important that I get that shirt.
so people should stop slacking.
Yeah, what is with the slacking on the t-shirt deal here? I've got the Oracle of Outer Space shirt. I don't have that many shirts, that's what the deal is. So if I can get one with a ghost on it out of this show, that would be amazing.
But also maybe make an out of this world shirt.
Hey,
And it should glow in the dark, probably.
a glow-in-the-dark out of this world t-shirt.
Yeah.
Let's do the old, what is it called? It's tip. Let's do the tip thingy. And next time we'll automate these so we don't have so much typing. And then yeah. We have another, what is
oh yeah, someone asked about, it was Muscat Grape asked about
Yeah, we didn't get back to that yet,
temperature.
so let's do that.
So this kind of goes hand in hand with what I was talking about earlier with the spirits drawing power, such as electricity. Sometimes they can even draw a little power from people. You know, they draw power out of batteries, stuff like that. So it's not uncommon for them to be drawing things in from all around them, including temperature. And the stereotypical temperature change that people think about with ghosts is getting really cold, but it can actually go both ways. And it can also change pressure at the same time. So you can get both a pressure change and a temperature change from an entity being nearby. And it can be hot or cold. And yeah, it's generally because they're drawing energy from their surroundings to try and manifest in some sort of way.
It's a good answer. Tiff, you sort of look like you're on a crucifix almost because I've got this theremin here.
Oh, because my picture's in front of the
your photo is kind of
theremin.
hanging on this. Well, we're kind of running out of time here, but do we want to wrap up here? You want to give us a summary of what do you have to say about this experience, Tiff?
Well, I had a fun time. I wish we had more callers and I could answer more questions, but we got something from Illuminous. There was one other thing I wanted to mention, but I have to look up the numbers because it's another one of those things that can kind of debunk
Okay.
some people's experiences with paranormal. So there is a phenomena where if there is sound in a room that is below 20 hertz but above 90 decibel, it can't be heard by the human ear, but it actually causes very uneasy feelings and weird experiences, and
Talking
it's
about the
very
brown note?
often yeah, the brown note. But I don't know if it's actually considered the brown note. But yeah, it's a feeling that makes people get that like anxiety, uneasy, heavy feeling that people describe with hauntings. So there have also been a lot of cases where people think it's a haunting, but really, if you set up the right equipment to test for that, it's just sound.
Reminds me of how I react to fluorescent lights. Do you ever get that, Tiff? Just fluorescent lights on?
I hate fluorescent lights. I
It's
hate
so-
them shining into my eyeballs.
Yeah, something about it is just very disturbing. It's always bothered me. In the pants, what is that? Oh, the brown note makes you feel uncomfortable for sure in the pants, he says. It makes people involuntarily soil themselves. Well, we are at 4 o'clock now, so I think that we should probably wrap this up. That was a good couple of hours, and it sounds like this was a great first episode with Tiff, and maybe she's interested in doing some more of these.
Yeah, well, I had fun, and I think that I know even more information, so, we could do more episodes with different information or more people asking questions, and yeah, and also maybe we can get in touch with Sylvia for next time.
Yeah, try to get her on
I
there.
did want to say there was
Sure.
someone in here who, and I don't know if they're still in here, talking about their daughter. If they want to contact me afterwards, if they're still in here about that,
Yeah,
since I
great.
wasn't really able to offer a lot of help just over here, they can feel free to do that.
Yeah, I have his information, so I can pass that on.
Okay, yeah, anyone who wants any help afterwards, especially if it's something serious like that, I'm always willing to help.
And people can reach you on social media, right? Under you want to give that out?
Well, pretty much the only social media that I'm ever on is Instagram, and my name is XTIF. I do have a Twitch page that I don't really use anymore. Once I got my pots that I brought up earlier, I kind of stopped streaming by myself, but you can find me there, and if you message me there, I can still get it. So, you can find me places and get in contact with me, or worst case scenario, get in contact with Carl if you need something.
Great. So,
Wait a second. Did we make your goal?
Did I?
Yeah, I think so. You made it over.
Look at that.
We did it just in time.
You just
Last
made the
second.
goal. I'm getting that ghost t-shirt.
Whoever made, well, thanks to everybody who made donations, but whoever finished that off,
Yeah.
you're the number one hero. Everyone else is number two hero.
Well, let's see who the winner is. Let's can we do a let's find out if there's who wins this time. Let's see if it's Spezix. Oh, the winner is Illuminist. The winner today is Illuminist. All right.
Congratulations, Illuminist, for being the winner.
All right, everyone. If that's it, Tiff, then we'll sign off. Is that good?
I'm good if you're good, and everybody else in the chat is good.
Well, thanks everybody for watching, and huge thanks to Tiff Wegmann, our expert paranormal expert.
I wasn't disappointed, Illuminus. I'm actually just bitter because yesterday we were testing the winner function, and
Right.
I was like the only one who didn't win, and there were only 3 of us in the chat.
Yeah, we were testing that winner thing, and it just kept coming up as Spezix winning over and over, and we're
And
like, how is
then
this
once
happening?
Carl won.
And then once I won. So thanks to Tiff for joining us. I am here on Twitch twice a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays around this time. So be sure to follow and tune in. And this has been Out of This World with Carl King and
Tiff Wegmann.
And Tiff Wegmann. Play the theremin a little bit. Trying to get the math. Oh, there we go. Okay.
We might need to work on your outro.
We need to work on my outro.
Maybe like some ending credits.
Yeah, there needs to be an ending page. I forgot the ending page. We'll do that.